are a lot of different cameras in the market, and really depending on what you do will determine which camera is best for you. You probably have been accustomed to using a webcam, and webcams are great. They give you better picture quality than you might get with your laptop directly. But then as you really want to begin to improve the quality of your content, you may look into mirrorless and DSLR cameras. I'm a huge fan of mirrorless cameras. This is the AV-E20, which is really good because of the 4K quality and the fact that you can interchange lenses. So depending on the different effect that you may want to create, you can do so by swapping out the different lenses. So this gives you the best of both worlds for video and photography. And I like this specific model because not only does it have a flip out screen, but you can definitely see what you're recording if you wanted to go vlog style. But more and more recently, as more of you all have come to this channel, you've seen how I talk about PTZ cameras. And even outside of the YouTube space, more of my content creator friends have been either receiving their PTZ cameras or interested in them and how they can incorporate them into their home studio setups. Now, this particular setup right now, I'm using nothing but PTZ cameras for all the different camera angles. My camera here, and even my overhead camera is a PTZ, not to mention the camera behind me and the camera way over there in the back of the room. What I like to do with PTZ cameras is have the flexibility to move around my space. These PTZ cameras are just that. They have the ability to pan, to tilt, and to move. We're going to talk about why using a PTZ camera is maybe something that you should consider if you're a content creator. So why would a content creator be interested in a PTZ style of camera? Well, let's first start with price. This particular camera is under $550. And compared to my mirrorless cameras and the lenses that go along with it, along with the batteries associated with it, those prices tend to be much more than $550. So if you're looking for a cost-effective camera, then PTZ cameras can give you that flexibility. This one in particular just happens to be, and I'll link to it in the description of this video if you want to check it out. Now, the way that you would set up and use your PTZ camera is very similar to how you would use a webcam or a mirrorless and DSLR camera. It's kind of a hybrid between the two. Let's start by checking out the connections, particularly of this camera. Similar to a webcam that has a USB port, this has a USB port as well. So you can connect the included USB 3.0 cable from the camera directly into your computer, then bring up your live streaming software such as OBS and bring this camera into your live streaming software as a camera. Maybe you're using this for business needs. You can easily bring it into Google Meet or Zoom or any other conferencing platform where you require a camera. If you're familiar with using a mirrorless DSLR camera, you know that not only do you have the option of connecting with USB sometimes, you can now connect via HDMI on those higher end cameras. Now, in my case, in this space, I have an A10 Mini Extreme switcher, and that way I can switch between multiple camera angles because all my cameras are plugged into the video switcher device. But if you're going to use this as your main sole camera, take the HDMI cable, connect it to your video capture card, and then directly into your computer. If you plan on setting up your camera at a further distance away than the recommended length for HDMI cable links, then you can use the SDI connection. So this is going to be great for those longer distance setups where you may need to put your camera a little bit further away and you still want that high reliable signal to your computer and your camera. And finally, you can even set up this camera on your network. With the network jack, not only do you set up the camera, but you can even power it on because this is a PoE compatible PTZ camera. So with one network cable, I can power on the camera and deliver the video signal across my network and into my live streaming platform. These cameras come with a remote control and you can easily go through the menu and navigate to change the different settings. But you do have to be close enough to the camera, and your camera does need to be connected to a monitor so that you can see which settings you're actually controlling. If you set it up on your network, you can simply log into your PTZ camera by the IP address that you give to the camera, change any of those different settings and access the camera. So you have at least 4 different ways that you can set up this camera, and the choice is really up to you. Now, I just mentioned the remote control, and I'm a big fan of having the remote control easily accessible to me to make these quick configuration changes. However, when you have multiple cameras in an environment like I do, default out the box, this controller not only controls this camera, but when I make a move on the remote, it's controlling all of my cameras, and I don't want to do that. So I use the PTZ Super Joy controller, and I'm able to connect it directly to my camera over the network, or if it's just my solo camera, I can connect my controller directly to this camera and control it using the joystick. The joystick gives you a lot of functionality, and I'll link to that video so you can learn more about the functionality on the joystick. But essentially the same controls that you have on this camera, being able to set up different presets, you can do the same thing on a controller as well. And there is one more port to mention on this camera. It does have the ability for you to plug in a 3.5mm connection, and you're able to bring in audio through this camera, and you can send it back out over one of your connections. However, I do not like to connect a microphone to my PTZ camera. I like my audio and video separate and independent. So I just send my video signal over either the USB, over the HDMI, over SDI, or over my network, and I send my audio over the audio source using an audio mixer. And in this case, in this setup, I use the Rodecaster Pro 2, and I bring my audio into my setup as a different source. Now, the source that I use that makes all of this work is the A10 Mini Extreme ISO. So my camera is actually connected to the A10 Mini Extreme. My Rodecaster audio is connected to the A10 Mini Extreme, and the A10 Mini Extreme is connected directly to the laptop. And that's how I set up everything inside of my live streaming software. And in some cases, you may want to mount this upside down and vertically to give you even more field of view. So you can actually mount this camera upside down and then have more of a field of view to capture everything in your space. I really think PTZ cameras are going to catch on more and more and more as people really begin to understand the things they can do with them. No longer are there static shots where you have to get up and move your camera around. You can just simply take your remote, move your camera left, right, up, down, zoom in, zoom out, and really have some more engaging content, especially if you're live streaming. Make sure you check out the next video here on the channel, and I look forward to seeing you over there.